Then you guys know I'm on with No Saints every single Friday night. I do it Friday night after you guys get off of work. Y'all chilling, y'all home, you happy that it's the weekend. Hey, you taking your clothes off or putting your clothes on to go out. You know what I mean? Getting your little drink, pouring a little drink. You hanging out with the likes of me, which isn't so bad. And No Saint. No Saint, how are you? Got a lot to talk about this week. Got a lot to talk about. You guys know that we come on here, talk about the trending topics that were popping off during the week. So you got to wait for us till Friday to hear all the juicy stuff. No Saint, how are you?
Man, I'm doing well, doing well. Another week went by rather quickly for me. Had a little, what is it, Memorial Day, I think, that we went through. So yeah, it was quick for everybody, I guess. But yeah, we got a lot to get to. I'm about to head out there to Vegas next week, really early next week. So we are going to be getting some more content, as well as we'll be doing the show together. Probably the next two shows I think we'll be doing together.
Now you said Memorial Day, wasn't it Labor Day?
I get confused with those. I'm not sure.
Memorial Day, Veterans Day, Labor Day, it's all the same thing, right? Shout out to our military. Thank you for your service. Please don't get mad at us, okay? Sometimes they get a little mixed up. So a lot has been happening in the news. Trump is playing Who Sunk My Battleship per usual. He actually changed the Pentagon's name to what? No Saint?
So he changed it. Well, I think he's in the process, or maybe he just signed again, did a executive order, but from the Department of Defense to the Department of War is what he did, which is, I really don't understand what the point is, unless he's just trying to irritate people, because there's really, or he's just trying to get his name on as many things as possible. So once he gets out, some will stick maybe. I'm not sure. It's kind of strange though.
That's actually a good guess, because we all know he is like textbook narcissist. Not like narcissist that you call your baby mama and your baby daddy when you're mad at them. Not that. He's like clinically textbook narcissist. So I wouldn't put it beyond him to try to leave his name in as many places as possible so he could walk around and boast about it and things like that. And also, he means war, right? He likes he's enamored by tough guys and tyrannical historical men. So maybe he's trying to be that guy. It's a turn on to be someone in history that was tyrannical, and so maybe that's the legacy he's trying to leave. But he did something that was very gangster the other day. It was very gangster. I thought it was very gangster. He actually dropped a freaking bomb on a Venezuelan allegedly boat running drugs to our country, America, with no trial, no judge, no jury. Trump was like, nope, they bringing drugs over here. I got information they bringing drugs over here, and dropped the damn bomb on the boat. Did you see that? No Saint? What's up, chat? I see ya.
Yeah. So this is the thing, and this goes way before Trump. So this isn't just somebody who's against Trump. The blurring of, in other words, they'll put things out there like when Bush was in office, it would be everything was a terrorist, right? So they could grab whoever they wanted. Oh, well, he was doing terrorism. And then the public started to say, well, he's doing, we got hit in 9/11. So yeah, let's get these guys. Yeah, terrorism, everything's terrorism. This is terrorism. And so now everything is, I can't remember the name of the group that he said the gang, something Agua or whatever. I can't remember. Venezuelan gang. He's saying that was that, right? We don't know if that was that. He just, it sounds good. Like, oh, look, we're taking the military and we're using it to blow up drug runners. I'm not sure if that is legal, but whatever mattered, what legalism ever mattered to this administration. And I think he's getting people used to things that aren't really normal. And some people are just cheering it on, right? Like, that's right. We need to use the military for that. Although the military, next thing it's going to be like when we see people going into cities, the National Guard, try to get people used to seeing the military out there, I mean, just, so it normalizes these things. I'm all against drug runners trying to get, drugs into the country. I'm just not sure the military is the thing to do it with. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Fahim Jackson. It's just that I let my curls down. It's hot in here, so in a minute it'll be the look that I actually want. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Shout out to the chat. Thank you for being here early. Don't forget on the Bakujan Cash App if you want to pay the lady for her appearance. You guys know I don't have super chat because YouTube is a hater. No Saint. So you mentioned legalities. If it was illegal, who's going to hold Trump accountable, for one? Who's going to take him to court? And for two, do you think that it's just to blow up bodies without actually getting information from the boat, seeing what was on the boat, seeing what people were on the boat, making sure? Because I thought that was a little wild, right? America prides itself in being, the law and order and, in God we trust. And they were like, fuck all that. We heard there was drugs on there. Blow them up, their mamas, their baby mamas, whoever's on the boat. We don't care. What do you think about that? Do you think that we should be doing stuff like that? Do you care? Does it matter? If someone is on a speedboat at that time of night, they can't be up to no good. They're not coming for vacation, right? So who cares, or should we care?
Well, no, I agree with you. I think we should care. I don't know if people do care, and I don't know if enough people care. We should care because, like you said, we're at the point now, like you said, who's going to hold a Trump or anyone, whoever's next president, who's going to be able to hold them accountable? Because the Supreme Court sort of said you're not going to be held liable if you're doing it in the office of president. You're using it for an official act, right? Gave anybody a blank sheet to kind of do things that might be illegal, and you'll never get prosecuted for it. I agree with you. Like, now we're just taking people's word for it, right? Oh, this was, like I said, this is terrorist. I mean, it's no different from any of these other countries that we make fun of, that have strongmen leaders that are saying, oh, we blew the plane out of the sky because, or we didn't poison. We didn't throw this guy out the window. I don't know what you're talking about, or we did, political enemies and things like that. So we're in a weird time. And one thing you said about Trump getting his name on everything, there is no doubt. I don't know how long this country will last. I mean, let's just say it lasts another 400 years. Don't think it will, but let's just say it lasts another 400 years. His name's going to be there. Because it is so from the norm of what we're used to seeing presidents do. His name's going to be in history, good or bad. People are going to read about it, and everybody's going to, and we have video and we have audio. So you're going to be able to see how he was as well. So it's a weird time, like I said.
Sheesh, 400 years. So with every incident that makes a lot of news, right? We have conspiracy theorists. For instance, Randy is already chiming in. Video can be manipulated. You can't believe everything you see on TV. There's that. And then sounds like Jabari is on the side of America. He says a lot of intel goes into these types of missions. Jen. So, okay, great point. Let's say a lot of intel goes into these types of missions. I don't trust that Trump is the guy to get a lot of intel on these types of missions. As narcissistic and tyrannical as he is, people like that can be manipulated via their ego. Did you know that? Someone who's very, very egotistical can be easily manipulated. All you got to do is rub their back a little bit, give them praise a lot. You can manipulate them any which way. So yeah, we can say, how do we know that video is real? But we can also say, who says that there was a lot of intel? Who says? Jabari, great point. But who says? How do you know? How are you privy to that information? No, Sam?
No, listen, in past administrations, I would agree with them that, well, we probably had really good intel that that's what was going on. The problem is with this administration, he disregards intelligence. If he has a gut feeling, he goes with his gut feeling over intelligence. He went with the Russian intelligence over our intelligence about things that had to do with Russia. So he believed Putin, I saw him, we're good friends or whatever. So you're right. In general, presidents usually do have good intel, but the problem with Trump is he doesn't listen to intel. If it's going against what he wants to do, he will disregard it. We've seen it time and time again.
So Jabari says that is not new. That has been the rule for presidents for decades. Do you think that we've seen this type of presidency before? No, saying.
No, this is, and I don't know what's going to happen after he's gone. Because whether he runs again or he dies, he's going to die one day. Nobody's going to live forever. I don't know if there'll ever be another one. There'll probably be someone's trying to copy him. I just think that I'm interested. I'm interested to see how this is going to happen later on. But he's one of a kind. I really don't know if we'll see anything like what he's done in the last, well, we can say the last 12 or 10 years or whatever, because he's been doing this even in between his elections. Even when he didn't get elected last time, he was still in the news doing it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
So has chat, help me out? Anybody watching, help me out. Has the Venezuelan government responded at all? Has there been any word from Venezuela like, hey, you blew up our citizens? What the fuck? Anything?
Yeah, there has been. They flew a couple of planes close to some of our fleet out there. We have a fleet in the Caribbean, and I think Trump or the military warned them not to do it again. Venezuela believes that this is a preemptive thing that's going to turn into them trying to change the regime, which it may be. It may be they want an excuse to go into Venezuela and change regime. Venezuela has a lot of oil as well. I don't know if that's why they would do it, but they're in OPEC, so they do have a lot of oil, and they're kind of like been a thorn in the side for a while. So it could be the preemptive, get us ready to go to war because these drug runners and they're killing our people. Trump was saying they killed 300. Well, he said the info was 100,000 people. He said, I think it's more like 300. He always has to make it bigger than whatever he gets, right? So it may be, this may be something that we're going to end up trying to overthrow that regime. Not sure, but that's kind of what it looks like.
So Jabari is popping off in the chat. Jabari, feel free to come up if you like. So Jabari is challenging, you saying there wasn't anything like this. He's saying Obama killed literally thousands of people in drone strikes without any judicial review. Reagan had around Contra. Someone else mentioned Bush Jr. Do you think that, again, I ask, have there been other presidents comparable to what Trump is doing? Is it just that Trump is loud and boisterous and obnoxious and is not as smooth as Obama, and his drone strikes?
No, not really. Those other presidents, I hear what he's saying. Other presidents have used means like to do things like to other countries, try to, they'll attack political, or they'll attack the, what they call the terrorists somewhere, they'll blow up some terrorists without authorization. I think they went after bin Laden without Congress knowing about it. That kind of stuff happens, but going after drug running boats, we do have other organizations that can do that. I mean, they have the DEA. We have a lot of different organizations that can do that. Nobody's ever used a military like that. This is a first, and if I can remember straight, I don't think we've ever had National Guard. Maybe the Civil War. After the Civil War, they had military on the streets. That's a little bit before my time. I'd have to look into that. But to send in troops for what's going on right now, like try to take care of crime and stuff like that. I haven't seen it. I don't remember it ever happening before. And none of those presidents he mentioned ever did that.
Well, there you go, Jabari. So do you think that Trump is using our military like his own flying monkeys, like in The Wizard of Oz? Like, it's like, hey, I want this done. You guys go and forget the DA. I'm sending my military because I'm Trump.
Yeah, that's what he is. He's the commander in chief. And commander in chief of the military. So he's the top leader of the military, but nobody's ever used it like, oh, we're going to send him in here in the United States. It's always been using him abroad. He'll command him abroad. are supposed to get authorization from Congress to have a war and things like this. But he definitely think, and you know how he is. He does think it's his military. He doesn't look at it as, I believe, he doesn't look at it as the country's military. I think he thinks that's his personal military to do with what he wants. And nobody's stopping him. The Republicans certainly aren't standing in his way. Uh-oh, she froze up, I think. So we will wait until she comes back. So it's going to be, oh, by myself. Don't worry, she'll be right back. So anyway, yeah, I just think it's a really interesting time. Jabari, like I was saying, I really don't think we've seen anything like what he's doing. And he is loud. And so Jen had a point with that. But I really think that
can you guys go back?
There you go.
The Wi-Fi's acting funny. The Wi-Fi's acting funny. So, no saying, someone said in the chat he's preparing for war, and then, I heard recently the U.S. did send F-35 fighter jets to Puerto Rico and some boats. And what are we getting ready for? What exactly is happening? What do you think, or chat? What do you think is the reason for that? E-Black, shush.
Yeah, right. Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, and we have boats out there, ships out there. I do. I think it's just preparing to strike Venezuela. I mean, I don't know. That's just my gut feeling on that. I have no information. I'm not privy to anything, but that's what I think it looks like. That's what it looks like from the outside, anyway.
Jabari, cam up. I can't keep reading the chat. Like, cam up, because you on fire. Big Dog says, again, no, they're really going at you. No saying. They said you are wrong. Military has been used on the war on drugs for over 40 years. Can you clarify what it is that you mean by the military hasn't been used this way to calm the chat down?
I'm not sure if they're talking about, like, we go and train, like, for instance, we go and train the Colombians. He might be talking about that, like when they go over to Colombia and we have military equipment over there. We train the Colombian military. But all that to be said, we've never dropped bombs on a boat. We've never we've never used Tomahawk missiles to blow out these little boats or whatever. It's different. It's just different. I'd have to look into what they're saying. I mean, they may be right as far as going to other countries and using our military like that. I've never seen it used within the United States. Definitely, I've never seen anybody drop bombs on these boats. At least not. It wasn't publicized like this is. It might happen, but maybe that's what he's talking about.
So speaking of not using the military, is the National Guard considered the military? I don't mean to insult. Is that also the military or not? Is that military light?
Well, the National Guard is they can be called up to be active duty. So they train like the military. They just also, when they'll go like a weekend out of the month and then 1 month out of the year, and they'll get deployed sometimes for a few months to go overseas. So it's kind of like, I mean, it is part of it. It's just not full time. And then you have the reserves and you have the Guard, and then you have you have the reserves and the Guard. I believe the Guard, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think the Guard might be like state. Like you have the Louisiana National Guard, you have the Nevada National Guard. I think that's more, like when floods happen and things like that as well, they'll be out there, putting sandbags out and things like that. So it is military-esque. It's just not full time.
Sandbags, huh? No saying. What I am asking is, if a Marine got in a fight with a guy from the National Guard, would the Marine choke him up and be like, "You ain't seen what I seen, man. You ain't seen what I seen." I'm talking about that.
Well, but I'm saying that's not necessarily true, because I work with a bunch of guys that are in the Guard, and they'll get deployed to, the Middle East and be there for 2 or 3 months and get rockets fired at them from Iran. That's happened. So, they see stuff too. That's all I'm saying. But it's not as likely. Sometimes those guys volunteer, like, who wants to go to the Middle East? Oh, I'll go. You get this per diem and extra pay. I'll go, where if you're in the Marines, they're not asking you. They're just going to send you there.
Okay, fair enough. Don't get at me, National Guard. I'm just asking. I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn. You want to school me? School me in the chat. School me in the comments if you're catching after. Here's Jabari. Jabari, I'm giving you a pass. You ain't coming up, but I'm giving you a motherfucking pass because you family, okay? But don't anybody else think they're gonna come up here behind the avatar. That is so 2020. Jabari, how are you, darling?
I can't hear him. He needs to either turn his mic on or.
He said you 100% wrong in the chat. Jabari, we can't hear you. Your mic is dead, babe.
Okay, can you hear me now?
You said 100% wrong. That's a big percentage. That's totality. What do you got to say to No Saint?
He's 100% wrong. I was in the Air Force and I was in the National Guard.
I mean, I was in the Air Force for 9 years as well. I wasn't in the Guard, but I'm just curious. What do you disagree with?
The National Guard is a part of the military. The National Guard is the states is actually paid.
You went out, Jabari. Can't hear you at all.
Dang it. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to get it on both. Can you hear me now? Okay, yeah. What I was saying was the National Guard is a part of the military as much as any other branch. They're just run by the states. They're actually operated the purview of the governors. So you can join the Air Force and be employed by the United States government pays your pay. If you're employed by the National Guard, the state pays your pay. However, you're the United States military. You can be called up. You said that the Marine can get called up and they have no choice. National Guard units can get called up and have no choice. The 165th was the unit that flew the C-130s in the first Gulf War. That's the National Guard unit. Also, the United States has been waging a war on drugs since the 1960s. And I don't mean a propaganda campaign. They've been killing people in other countries, our military, since the 1960s, since the war on drugs. You can argue we've been doing it since the Boxer Rebellion in the 1920s in China. The United States has had no problem killing people in the pursuit of drugs. What Trump is doing is being publicized because our media doesn't like him. But it doesn't change the fact that pretty much every president, I can go through at least the last 5 or 6, they've done something similar, and a lot of times something worse. People forget Biden killed 10 people, an adult, a woman, and 8 kids after the terrorist attacks at Abbey Gate. He killed 10 people trying to prove that we had over the horizon capabilities. 10 people, 8 kids. They had a water tank on top of a car, and he blew it up with a Tomahawk missile. You go back to Obama. Obama used to blow up people at weddings. Everybody that got killed was considered collateral damage. That stuff was in and out of the press. You go back to George Bush. George Bush waged wars all over in the war on terror. He killed people all over Europe, Africa, wherever. You go back before him to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was waging clandestine wars in Africa. You go back before him to Ronald Reagan. You had Iran-Contra. Go back before him to Jimmy Carter. Go back before him. Every president in the last 100 years has waged these types of wars. We changed the name from the Department of Defense, from the Department of War, which it was, to the Department of Defense in the 1940s. That was propaganda. It was because the Russians, we said we were the ones that were defending the world. We were the Department of Defense. We weren't waging war. The Russians, the evil commies, they had a Department of War. We had a Department of Defense. That was all propaganda from the 1700s.
So wait, before we go, way in the weeds here. Didn't Reagan drop crack in California?
We didn't drop it, but that was a part of Iran-Contra. He allowed the Sandinistas who were running drugs the same way the Venezuelan government does now. They're a designated narco-terror state, not by the United States only, but by Interpol. They're a narco-terror state. Their government runs drugs into other countries to make money because they have sanctions on their oil, not just by the United States, but by, the Europeans, some Asian countries. So they have drugs and they use those drugs to make money. But Reagan allowed the Sandinistas who were in Nicaragua to bring cocaine into the United States. The money they got from the cocaine, they used to buy weapons from Iran, thus the Iran-Contra, the Iran and the Nicaraguan Contras. And the link was drugs are being pumped into primarily the Black communities, not just in LA, Chicago, Atlanta, Philadelphia, New York. That's when we had the beginning, what became the crack epidemic of the 80s, was because that was allowed from the early 80s until it came out during Reagan's second administration.
So crack for a good cause, then. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much.
I'll say, listen, I didn't know about I learned some things. I didn't know about it was called the Department of War back in the 40s. So that was pretty interesting. A lot of stuff I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know if you were coming in and I was saying that the Guard is like run by it was a state, kind of a state thing. And I do know what you're saying is correct as far as them being deployed with the military, because when I was deployed in Afghanistan, we had the Guard there. But I will say today, they're, at least from the guys I talked to, now we're not in any major conflict right now. I don't think we're in any major conflict right now. They go on deployments and they volunteer. Like they'll come in and say who wants to go, because it's, as you get paid more money when you deploy through per diem and things like that, and you get the tax-free money and all that. So they'll go voluntarily. That's all I was saying. But most of the stuff, I agree. I just think that the only thing I'll say is different about what's going on now. You're right. It's being publicized, but I've never seen a direct, like what you're talking about, weren't we feeding weapons to somebody else who was fighting? And like you said, with Obama and with Clinton and all, they'll blow up, so if it was terrorists, they'll hit a wedding, everything like that. And in the name of terror, right? We'll send rockets as well. So you're right in that sense that we do send rockets. It's just never been like for drug dealers, I guess. But yeah. So I'm just thinking about what he was saying about all the presidents doing it, and they usually always have a good excuse, which is it's either this time it's drugs. They're sending drugs here, and there's always that's the reasons they give out to have us accept it. But I just believe that there's other things going on as well. I don't think it's just because why, and to Jabari, why wouldn't they have done that a long time ago as far as knocking boats? I know what you're saying as far as like training, sending military equipment, kind of advising. I know we went into Panama back in the 80s with the military to take out Noriega. Yeah, that was true too. That was to get rid of but what happens is we usually use these people, and then when they're useless to us, we go and change them out because they'll put them in there first, and then all of a sudden it's not going their way, and they'll go ahead and we need to get this guy's got to get, like somebody we know says, let's get him out of here.
Well, Noriega was trained at the School of the Americas in Columbus, Georgia, at I forget the name of the army base there. A lot of those dictators are, or their generals are. But my only thing was, I think a lot of the things that we're seeing now, I think it's, I heard somebody say this, and I believe it. If Trump cured cancer, they will cheer for cancer. It's a lot of people that hate anything that's against him. And I think we have to get to the point where we can say, all right, this that he's doing is stupid. This that he's doing is bad. But this is a good thing. And this helps all of us. This helps society. This helps the country. Everything isn't a bad thing. And I think that it's easy to get caught up in that. I guess the best way to put it is mob mentality of, everything Trump is doing is bad, or we can believe what the media is telling us all of a sudden. These same people who Jen knows I hate the media. And that's, I mean, these are the same people that said that black men were super criminals for my entire childhood and all of my teenage years. So excuse me if I don't start believing you now.
So Jabari, so are you MAGA? Did you vote for Trump?
I voted for him the second time. I didn't vote for him the first time. Actually, the first two times I didn't vote for him.
So I have a little challenge. What's up, eScrabble? I got a little challenge from the chat that's interesting. Don Levant says, who's going to have 11 people in a small drug boat? They had more people than drugs in that boat. Laughing emoji. And also, bro, Trump just blew up a fishing boat and you act like it was a boat linked to El Chapo. That's for you, Jabari, because you seem to be very much for just blow up the damn boats. If it looked like a drug boat, talk like a drug boat, move like a drug boat, blow it up. Is that what you're saying?
I think that a lot of people make assumptions. I think the whole 11 people, you don't know the size of that boat. You don't know what was on that boat. I mean, I know for a fact that, I live in a coastal city. I went to school in Florida. I know for a fact people run drugs on normal boats. That's how a lot of the drugs are run. They bring them in on normal boats. You're not going to bring those in on a shipping container, generally speaking. The DEA and the Department of Defense, they have, and no saying you're in the military, you know this, you don't just fire weapons. Like, you can't just fire. There's a procedure you have to go through. There are verifications you have to go through. You got to know what you're shooting at when the military fires. And it wasn't nilly-nilly. I know people who don't have military experience, who haven't either been in a situation where the military opens fire or listened in on it through communications. You don't understand the verifications that have to happen before we can open fire. Like, you got to get approval from a bunch of people, which is why it's either an assassination of somebody important if something like that happens, or it's what they say. And nobody is saying that anybody important or governor this or some important person was on that boat. So I don't see a reason why they would target and assassinate 11 random fishermen. You see what I'm saying? It makes much more sense in that situation that it is what they say.
So let me push back a little bit, because weren't you just saying that innocent kids got blown up because they had water above a car, and Obama killed people at wedding? Donovan was also saying you just said Obama killed somebody at a wedding. So
Obama killed. What happened was, it was a specific event. There was a wedding. A terrorist was at a wedding. He was a known terrorist, no doubt about it. Everybody knew who he was, but he was attending a wedding. And they dropped a 1,000-pound bomb on the wedding to get him. And they killed the women, the children, everybody else who was there to kill him. And they said, well, it's just collateral damage. It was intentional. Whether you want to say, well, we didn't want to kill the kids, but the kids were there. You knew that dropping a bomb was going to kill everybody there. It was a target.
What about Jabari? Hold on. So what about the car that you spoke of? They had a water tank. Like, did they get clearance to shoot at that car?
Yeah. It took, and there were people challenging the intelligence on it, and that came out literally days later. There were people on the ground, the eyes on the ground were saying, don't fire, don't fire. We had the intelligence on the ground was saying no, and we fired anyway. And this all came out immediately after it happened. Now we got a couple of days. It's enough people in the State Department and in the Department of Defense that don't like Donald Trump, that if this was a mistake or error, if they killed the wrong people, it'll come out, and it won't be long before it comes out. The one thing about the DOD, it's hard to keep a secret if it's not supposed to be a secret. If you do dirt, it comes out. So we'll see. I just think I think a lot of the pushback is what No State was saying, that, oh no, because, and I think it's a lot of it is media driven. Oh, no president has ever done this. Talk to people in the Coast Guard, man. They open up with those 50 cals on boats, and they will shred your boat like Swiss cheese if they think that there's drugs on board, or if you don't stop when they tell you to stop and they think there's drugs on board, they'll open fire. So
let me ask you,
that's my point.
Jabari, let me ask you one last thing before we segue, because I do want to ask you this. So the same way you kind of like cheer on, well, not cheer on, but co-sign Trump and collateral damage, right? Doesn't matter how many people were on the boat, you are bringing drugs, everybody got to go. Do you also champion Obama, who bombed an entire wedding, killing women and children, whatever? Are you just like, hey, that is what happens when we go and get the bad guys? Do you feel the same way about Obama doing it as you do Trump doing it?
I'll say this. I'm not really a fan of either, but I understand both. I'm not a fan of it when Obama did it. If it was innocent people on the boat that got killed with the drug dealers, I'm not a fan of that, but I get it. You got to get the people who are trying to get you, and I get it. I won't condone it, but I'm not the president. I'm not a general. I don't have to make that call, but I understand why they do.
Okay, No Saint.
Yeah, I just want to say some things into what he said. And as far as what you're saying, I get, as far as like when you're bombing the wedding, there may be some truly innocent people there, which there probably are. It's like, like going to probably like going to a mob wedding. There's probably some people there aren't in a mob, but you get caught up, and if something happens, right? You get the side shrapnel, and there's probably a lot of bad people there too. That you're like, well, you're hanging out in that crowd. But what I want to say is, listen. I do give Trump credit for some things, and I have since his first time around. I was like, well, that was actually not a bad deal. With the border situation, I thought, well, I got to give him credit. He stopped a bunch of people from coming, from flooding the border. The problem I have with him, and the problem I have with the people that, no matter what he does, support him, is he's doing things that aren't the norm. If someone disagrees with him, he's hired to have a certain position, he gets rid of them until they agree with them. Just like this whole, he kind of goes to whatever a lot of times, whatever either he thinks, his gut feeling, or whatever his crowd thinks. But he's done that several times where I don't like what this guy's saying. They'll tell him the truth. I don't like the answer. I'm going to go ahead and put somebody in who believes in said conspiracy theory, or, it's just somebody who agrees with him. And that's why I say he's not a normal president. He's doing things that Obama wouldn't. There's a lot of things he's been doing that many presidents, not just Obama, wouldn't have done. They kind of play by the rules. You can push the boundaries, but they wouldn't. They would like, well, the spirit of the law is this. Trump says, well, this is what it says, but it doesn't say this. Let me see if I can get it this way. And that's the reason that I kind of get nervous in things that he does. And the fact that you said you can't trust the media, this guy lies 1,000 times a day, and people act like he's telling the truth. How can you trust somebody like that? I'm sure all politicians lie, but he lies about dumb stuff.
I don't trust
he lies about a lot of dumb things that he doesn't have to lie about.
But if you paid attention to Trump for any period of time, he's been the same loud, obnoxious, relatively narcissistic guy since the 80s, since he had the Trump games, since he had Trump Plaza. He's always been the same person. We act like he just popped on the scene 5 minutes ago. the guy's who he's always been.
Jabari, let me interject real quick. Nobody minded that Trump was that way when he was on reality shows. It was entertaining and it was funny. We just didn't want that to be a president. You understand that, right?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: every president is a narcissist. Every president is a narcissist. You've got to be a narcissist to say, I want the whole world to, be my oyster. I want to be able to kill anybody on the planet I want and not have any consequences. That was another thing, though, Saint. The Supreme Court affirmed a decision from the 1950s or 60s saying that the presidents couldn't be prosecuted. And that's another thing that was twisted by the way it was reported. But the fact is, they affirmed the decision. That's why Obama was never prosecuted for Fast and Furious. When we sent the guns to Mexico, that the cartels used to kill drug runners. That's why Reagan was never prosecuted for Iran-Contra. That's why Bush was never prosecuted for lies to Congress. I mean, that's been long-standing doctrine in our country. You don't prosecute, especially former presidents. And it's almost impossible to prosecute a governor, a senator. When's the last time you heard of a senator with all of the lying and stealing and drunk driving and vehicular homicides they do? When's the last time you heard a senator or a congressman get arrested and thrown in jail for anything? I mean, it's just, they live by a different set of rules. So that's not.
Okay, Jabari. Don is asking an interesting question. Oh, please hit that like for me and subscribe if it's your first time here. Hey, baby. And also, I can't do super chat, so if you'd like to pay me for what I do here, Cash App on the block again. It is scrolling at the bottom. Jabari, Donovan is asking very fairly, and I promise I want to segue into the National Guard again and what Trump is doing with them that I agreed with. No Saint doesn't agree with. And a lot of people are going to be mad that I agree with Trump on this. But Jabari, Don wants you to name 5 things that Trump has done to help the American people. And if you can't name 5, he said, I'll make it easy. Name 3.
I can name 5.
Oh, he said he'll give you 5, Don. Let's hear it, Jabari.
We can start with the First Step Act that changed the rules for the prosecutions of crack cocaine. It made it the same as it made crack the same as cocaine, which cocaine was an offense that, for the most part, white people were arrested for. Cocaine, black and brown people. Closing the southern border, that was a huge thing. The commitment to finding the missing kids. There were 300,000 unaccompanied minors that were missing. We found 50,000 of them so far in his first 6 months. Biden did what? First Step Act? No. Go look. It happened under the first Trump administration. If you want to talk about, you want to go back to his first term, you can talk about the opportunity zones in the minority communities. Opportunity zones allow people to start businesses, limited tax. It gave tax breaks and tax credits for starting businesses in urban or the black communities. The border is not. How many, Don Lamont? How many interactions did we have in the border last month? And he's been in office for 6 months. You can say, I'll give you the example. Best political, yeah. And well, it's a bunch of things in the chat. I'm trying to respond, but I'll stick to the 5 things. We'll stick with the 5 and then we'll go back. I think that it was also the pardons when he got into office of people who from Kwame Kilpatrick, people who were over prosecuted to make a political point. Kilpatrick, a lot of people that were arrested as a result of cocaine and crack from the what was that act called? 1994 Crime Act, sponsored by Joe Biden, by the way. And I would argue that the tariffs have been a benefit to Americans. I think that the economic policy in this term has been a benefit to Americans. I think the focus has been on bringing jobs back to this country. Now, you can argue, and some do, that it will increase prices, but if you got to pay an extra nickel for something so that your neighbor can have a job, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. That was a quick 5.
Challenge accepted and delivered. All right, those are the 5 things. So speaking
I'm a
of
business
Trump,
owner. The breakdown, just so you know, you said, what is it directly benefited me? The tax breaks have benefited me because my business is in the Black community. I do marketing, and most of my clients are Black businesses. So yeah, it benefits. I know people that it directly benefits, and I'm one of them.
So, yeah, no, you're fine. So listen, this is what is always kind of interesting, and I'm not saying this is you, Jabari, because I don't know your voting history, and I don't know, I just hear what you're saying now. But like, Republicans or conservatives have always been against raising taxes. This tariff is just a tax. That's all it is. They raise taxes on everybody, and it's not a progressive tax. It's a tax. It's a flat tax. It's a flat tax that everybody has to pay. The prices, he came in saying that he was going to lower prices at grocery stores. Didn't happen. He came in saying, he's made certain promises. For instance, here's one thing he says a lot of the time. He used to always talk about the stock market. Look how great the stock market is. Then when it tanked and went down 20%, well, it's not that big a deal. Now it's back up, and he'll start taking credit for it again. But on a side, that was a side note. But what I'm saying is that as far as what you're saying, I don't think that, I think manufacturing. You're talking about bringing back jobs. The problem with that is, we are not prepared to bring back the jobs that are being done. A lot of the jobs that are being done in other countries, the manufacturing jobs that are being done in Vietnam and places. We've been out of the business for so long. We don't have those factories we don't have the capacity right now to do a lot of those things. Now, you can say, well, you got to start somewhere. Well, I would start by building these factories, having people invest in those first, and then maybe hit a tariff, but not just go ahead and, put the tariff on everybody when we really don't have the means to be able to do any of that.
You know that the tariffs are all of our tariffs that we're putting on other people are what they call reciprocal tariffs. The tariffs, all of these countries already tariff our products heavily. It's reciprocal. And before I get into the same issue with my family all the time. People put me in a position of having to defend Trump like I'm a, raving Trump supporter. That's not the case. But when things are right, I'm going to call spades and hearts. And they're things that benefit people directly that people refuse to give the guy credit for. And the same thing happens when a Democrat is in power and I'm in Republican circles and they do the same thing and I call it out the same way. Some things are just a general good, and you call a general good a general good. And when you do that, it's easier for people to take criticisms more seriously when you're calling both sides, when you're calling balls and strikes for both sides. And that's my only point.
All right. What I'll say to that is, I am not in disagreement with you as far as he gets picked on a lot for things that he does. But I'll also say this: there's a lot more things that people don't call him out that are really bad things he's doing, and that's the problem. That's really the only reason. That's one of the main reasons I really think he's a bad president, is because when he starts cutting funds for universities that do research. Now, I know some people, well, they're teaching this, they're teaching that. I'm talking about scientific research. When you start to knock out beliefs in certain things that have been proven, I don't think he's doing it because he doesn't believe it. I think he's doing it because he's got a huge wave of people behind him, a lot of his base that don't believe in certain things, and he wants to be liked. So when he does that, and he we got a guy in there like when people talk about our RFK Jr., when people talk about him, they act like he's a doctor. He's he's not. He's a lawyer, right? He's a lawyer, and he worked for the anti-vax pushers. He worked for them directly. He's got things. So things like this, things like I'm losing my train of thought, but my basically is he cuts a lot of really things that put us number one. That, you know, when you start cutting universities' funds for scientific research, the reason we are ahead of other countries is due to science. And when you start having people have less confidence in that kind of thing, it bothers me. Those kind of things bother me. Hiring somebody or firing some guys they don't agree. Like people think that Trump is, I mean, not everybody, but some people think Trump says it. He's a genius. He when he talks about the economy, he's not an economic expert. You know, when he talks about these different, and no president, right? Some presidents talk about things they have no business talking about, but he acts as if he knows more than like the people at the Federal Reserve. And he doesn't. And when people say tariffs are bad, I believe the people that study it. I don't believe any president or anybody trying to get great for big business.
Jabari, mute your mic when you cough because it's hella loud.
I'm sorry.
You're just coughing over everything.
I don't know what it's sorry.
Okay, it's okay. So I want to really quickly, what's up, big dog? Everybody mute your mics because I'm having a lot of problems with the sound, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I did want to say, piggybacking off of Trump and the National Guard and how he's using the military, San Francisco ruled his troop deployment to Los Angeles earlier this year was illegal. He's sending them into Chicago, DC, et cetera, et cetera. He said something that I agree with and a lot of people are not going to like. He literally said about the ghettos and the criminals in the ghettos. He said, frankly, they were born to be criminals, and they're tough and mean, and they'll cut your throat, and they won't even think about it the next day. They won't even remember that they did it. And we're not going to have those people. He said he's very proud of what's going on in Washington. It serves as a template, and he's going to do it elsewhere. So he's thinking Chicago, DC, California, if they let him, and then New York. I have to agree with him that a lot of the criminals in the ghettos, and I was born and raised in one, are born to be criminals. That is how they are bred. They constantly keep breeding from these parents, and it just keeps happening and happening and happening. The ghettos aren't getting any better, no matter how many outreach programs there are, no matter how many boots on the ground there are, no matter how many laws there are. So what do you think about that? I do agree that, yeah, it probably would take the National Guard to straighten up the ghettos. But, you know, people didn't like stop and frisk. I thought stop and frisk was good. Is this a thing that, like Jabari, like you said, the general good, I think is what you said? It's like, okay, some people are going to get thrown up against the wall and searched and racially profiled, but are they going to get guns off the street ultimately? So I do agree with that. If you can't control your own neighborhoods, why not have the National Guard out there? I'd like to throw the mic to Big Dog, because you've been waiting. What's up?
Yeah, how you doing? To build off what Jabari was saying about the National Guard, right? So the National Guard is funded by the federal and state governments. Okay, so when they do their drill weekend, they're getting paid by the federal government. The only time they get paid by the state is if they are activated by the governor for a state issue. They train just like active duty has to do their training standards. They have to train to standards. By the way, National Guard was deployed in Guat more than active duty was. Okay, when it comes to the war on drugs, sorry, Saint, you don't know what you're talking about. I did 23 years. 10 of those years was in special operations. You have no clue on what we do overseas. That's a JSOC and a USACOM issue. That's 7th Group and 20th Special Forces Group area of operations. And I was in Bravo, 2nd of the 20th. We don't just train, we conduct. We've been doing this for over 40 damn years.
Okay, so stop and frisk was not good. Somebody said in the chat. What do you guys think about stop and
Every stop is not illegal.
I didn't want to interrupt. When we have to differentiate what happened using the National Guard in DC compared to those other cities too. DC is a federal city. They legally, the president and the Congress run DC. They allow the city council and the mayor to operate. It is a federal city. At any point, the federal government can take control and disband
Well,
the city council.
let's
in
talk about the mayor of DC right now, who also just spoke up and said she wants to talk about extending federal operations in DC.
Right.
Because of the 87% crime drop.
Right.
But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, right? Because I'm from the South Bronx, right? Born and raised. Okay. You know what we're gonna do? When back in my days when I was, being a hoodwink, we would just wait y'all out.
I'm sorry, what? Wait, who out? I don't know what you're talking
You
about.
wait the feds out. You wait the feds out. That's the only thing you could do. Unless the government's going to keep them there permanently.
But I mean, cities like Chicago, I mean, I don't get the governor. I don't get, and the people, if you like watch a lot of street interviews in Chicago, a lot of people in Chicago are like, what the hell are they talking about? Like it's a war zone in parts of the city.
But they're not in the top 5 either. St. Louis is in the top 5.
No, I mean,
Rochester, New York's in the top 5.
No, I get what you, but see that when we talk about per capita, you can have a shooting in a city, Mayberry. If Mayberry has 100 people and you got 3 murders, it's going to be in the top 5 in murders that year. Chicago has an insane amount of murders take place. It's a big city, but it is
I know.
It has an insane amount of murder.
Yeah. See, the problem is with that federal judge, when that federal judge made the ruling, was on posse comitatus, right? So now with posse comitatus, see, the thing is, the National Guard ain't out there making arrests. They're there to protect federal property, to include federal agents, because that's included in federal property. They're just a show of force. That's it.
But what somebody
unless they're under state orders by the governor,
right?
That's when they can make an arrest, because posse comitatus doesn't fall under that.
So let me throw this in. He also says Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. Parts of Los Angeles are terrible. If we didn't put out the fires, I mean the other fires, the bullet fires, Trump said, what are we going to do? Someone else said in the chat, stop and frisk was targeted against non-white people, but aren't the people in the ghettos, that's for Randy, in the ghettos committing the crime? So of course it's going to be targeted towards non-white people. What do you guys think collectively of the National Guard in the hood, checking the criminals in the hood?
That would be, well, for major cities, then that's black and brown. Right. Outside of major cities, then it's poor white people.
Right.
Okay. Let's be honest about that. Okay. The reason why the Southern District of New York stated what they stated about it so-called being illegal, which that's not what she really wrote. What she really wrote was, you're stopping too many black and brown. It's not equal. But that decision only deals within the New York tri-state area. It don't deal with the rest of the country. Only Supreme Court can make rulings for the country. So a lot of these federal judges, they are overstepping their bounds.
Agreed.
I'll say that we're talking about major cities, because like what Jabari said, there are plenty of smaller cities. I mean, I think New Orleans is in there too, as far as place. But there's high crime rates in
it's all over
white cities, if there's such thing, they're just small. They're just small. And so, but
crime is crime, period.
I think he's definitely going. I think he's definitely going after cities politically. I think he's doing it because it's run by
New York is a revenge issue. New York is a revenge issue. Yeah. Let's make that clear. That's a revenge issue. Okay. If you actually saw the appellate, with the 34 counts and it went to the appeals court, the appeals judges were going after the prosecutors. They did not give the prosecutors one break. They went after them.
So let me ask this, because I think this is an interesting point. He Love says Italian mafia and insider traders commit crimes too. What do you think the difference is between Italian mafia Italian mafia and say like, the YNs as they call them in New York City, you know what I mean,
Can I
deleting
answer
each
this,
other
Jen?
and robbing
There's
people and
codes.
things like that.
There
What's
was
the
Can I
codes.
difference?
answer this?
There was codes.
What? No.
There was
What they
codes.
did?
I'm sorry, but there was
What they
codes.
did? Wait a
You
second.
know,
Wait a second.
Jet.
What they did to the
Mhm.
Italian mafia with the RICO Act, it is insane that was ruled legal. A person who has no direct, you cannot prove that person had any, and now they're using it against drug dealers. A person who you cannot prove that person had any direct contact with the crime, but because they're a part of an organization with someone, you can convict them of the same crime. Think about how insane that is. And that's what they used to destroy and profile the Italians. Rudy Giuliani, who was an Italian, a wolf in sheep's clothing, what they did to the Italians, not just the mafia, but people who were affiliated in any way, is shameful. So when we talk about the Italians, you got to hit them with a caveat because they were done dirty. The illegal wiretaps that were allowed against them, the methods of coercion that were used against them, it's a lot of that stuff would not be allowed. But then again, who knows today? A lot of that stuff should be illegal, should have been illegal then, but it was just like it is now. They feed the public some stuff via their puppets in the media, and we gobble it right on up. And stuff that we know is wrong, we allow to happen because it doesn't directly affect us. That's what I got to say about the Italians and what they did to them. And the brokers need to go. The insider traders need to go to jail, and they have a whole division of the federal attorney's office that does nothing but go after insider traders. That's the
Well, they really need to go after Congress because Congress writes themselves out of these laws.
Well, I said that earlier. That
Okay.
Congress is exempt from
They
all
exempt
of it.
themselves from a lot of stuff.
They're above the law.
So okay, are we saying that we are for the National Guard and things like stop and frisk in the ghettos, right? Because that's where we're from. Well, me and Big Dog, right? Jabari, I don't think you know. I'm saying you. Do you are you for that? Okay, Jabari, you said that innocent Italians got caught up in RICOs. Is that equivalent to some high schoolers getting stopped and frisked and they don't have a gun on them and they're not criminals? Is that the equivalent? Is it casualties of war yet again? But is it necessary? Should the National Guard be in the hood? That's what I'm asking.
You see, Jen, the National Guard, even when even right now in DC, they're not making any arrests. Even though they have the authority in DC, they're not. What they're doing the work that other cops would do, the patrolling, the protecting buildings, things like that, so that the cops can focus on actually making arrests. The FBI surged in those cities to make more arrests. ICE surged in those cities to make more arrests. The National Guard's job is to hold down all those other things so that law enforcement can enforce laws. And in that regard, you, Jen, I know your backstory, you know my backstory. I would want the neighborhood I grew up in, I would want the people in that neighborhood to be safe. And I know there's a whole lot of YNs in that neighborhood that don't follow the rules that we had when we were growing up.
No, that's why
that we would have never allowed that happen in the neighborhoods now. So if that means you got to surge the neighborhood to protect the people who just trying to live, yeah, I'm all for it. I'm just being honest.
There was a point in the DEA still runs this. It's called HIDTA, right? High impact drug trafficking area. At one point, the military was heavily involved in that, to include military members doing A and B buys, right? That got changed down the road, where the military couldn't do that, so they're on a support level for that. Okay, so doing surveillance, counter surveillance, all the other natures of that job, which frees up agents to actually do their job.
This statement here is interesting. It's not just a crime race issue. There's also a poverty wealth issue that brings in crime also. Are we still blaming poverty for criminals? Are we still doing that? Because I know I grew up, again, in the Bronx, in the South Bronx as well. And, you know, my dad worked 3 jobs at times, right? We weren't in rich neighborhoods. So are we still blaming the wealth gap and you know, poverty for all these YNs and all these criminals that are running up on grandmas and snatching chains? Is it still the fault of the government why these kids are out there in hoodies, you know what I mean, beating people up?
You know what's
It's
crazy about that, Jen? If you look at poverty, poverty existed since after the Civil War. Since after the Civil War, Black people, Hispanic people, natives, hell, a lot of white people, most people in this country grew up poor. We blame poverty, we equate race and poverty, and crime and race, and crime and wealth. And that in and of itself is the worst form of racism and classism, because you're saying, oh, because you grew up Black and poor, you got to be a criminal, or you're more likely to be a criminal than, say, I don't know, someone who grew up in West Virginia, white and poor.
Appalachian Mountain,
That is a
super poor.
nasty form of prejudice, because they don't say that about white people in Mississippi who grew up poorer than anybody in any city in the United States. They don't make that equation. Why is it that you equate minorities and poverty with crime and not whites and poverty and crime? I'll open the floor up there for anybody willing to answer that one.
It's a game of divisiveness. Government don't want to see us together. They want to keep us divided. It's been like this for, you know, I don't even know how long, but, you know, it's, you know, I know Jen is way younger than me. She's from the South Bronx. I'm from the South Bronx. I came up during the Bronx is burning. I came up with flying cut sleeves.
How old are you?
I'm in my 50s.
So am I.
Okay.
Well, I'll just give an opinion. As far as like you're saying, the white, you know, the equivalency. This is something I've said for a long time. I think we can all agree that to blame one group of people, or to say this is our problem, to make one group of people less than, makes the poorest, lowest of the other people be above them. So I think it's like the poor white people say, well, at least I'm not Black. You know what I mean? That's what I think a lot of goes. I don't know. You know, that's just a theory. I'm not sure if it's true, but I kind of believe it is, that, you know, they use, and as far as, like you said, West Virginia, I'm sure I mean, I'd have to look up the statistics, but I'm sure they do a lot of crime in West Virginia. They're, like you said, they're amongst the most poor people in this country. I know it's a lot of meth problems there as well. So, but that's what I think when you say, why don't they talk about the Mississippi people? They just want the poorest, you know, poorest of the poor white people to have somebody else to blame.
Crime rate.
So let me say this real quick. Jabari, you had an excellent point, right? There is some racism in there, right? It's like if you're Black or brown, you commit crimes because of the poverty. But I was actually talking about Black and brown people who give that excuse as to why Black and brown people commit crimes. This is Black and brown people saying, well, if we wasn't so poor over here and we had better schools over here and we didn't have food deserts, maybe we wouldn't be criminals. So I'm talking about actual Black and brown people who are saying that, not white people who are calling us criminals.
So am I. I think a lot of people use a term that I try to avoid, internalized racism. I hear that a lot on college campuses, but that's a classic example of it. It's like the people, and I'm sure you got everyone has seen the interviews of the college students who say, oh, Black people don't know how to find the DMV. That's why we can't have voter ID laws.
Yeah, that's a bunch of BS.
They'll walk across town from the college campus in whatever city into the Black community. And people are like, yeah, all you gotta do is go down this street, turn here and go here, and you'll be right at the DMV. You know, so I think it's that disconnect. I think that as a lot of us become more quote unquote educated, we become more detached from the actual community. And I think we buy into a lot of the talking points. But the fact is, Black, brown, hell, a lot of minority communities were poor, and they didn't have the crime like they have now. They didn't have the type of crimes that we have now. I think everybody on the panel we're all in our 50s. The crime and when we were young was not like, and we grew up in the 80s during the crack epidemic, and crime wasn't what it is today. There were rules. You
Oh, the
stole
70s
drugs,
was way
you
different.
stole
70s
drugs
was different.
to junkies. You killed other drug dealers. It wasn't all of this. If you killed a kid in a drug war, you'd have to look out for your people as much as you would for the other side. There were rules in the hood that don't exist anymore. And that ain't got nothing to do with poverty. That has to do with culture, a culture that we've allowed to denigrate to where we defend and uplift the worst among us. We celebrate, and I was an athlete. I was a college athlete. Thank God for football, because that's how I got out. But we celebrate athletes and criminals more than doctors and lawyers in our communities. And that's the biggest part of the problem. We follow what some singer or some entertainer says and ignores the people who actually own businesses, the people who actually started whatever, the doctors in our neighborhoods, even the teachers, people that we used to put on pedestals. We don't. We laugh at them. We say, oh, this person makes more money than you, so we respect them more. And that's just ignorance. And that's why the culture is what it is.
Well, like you said, we had a code back in the days, right? And we stuck to that code, street code. If you're on the corner at the front of the bodega smoking an L, drinking a 40, if somebody's mother or grandmother was on, walking by, we put it away. It was a show of respect. If we had beef with somebody and they walking with their mother or their kid, you caught a pass. They don't do that no more. That street code is gone.
So we need the National Guard.
I want to throw this out. I do want to throw this out there to what Jabari was saying. First of all, I'd like to know where he played football. I'm just always interested in that. But also, I think now it's social media, started out with the 24-hour news cycle. All of a sudden, you see a rise in these school shootings. I think a lot of it has to do with all of this. People wanting to get that, for whatever reason, I'm going out, but I'm going to be famous. I'm going to get that clout before, I'm going to go ahead and film myself going to the school, telling everybody, yeah, just watch the news. And I think, back when we were growing up, you had the 6 o'clock news or whatever time in your area that it came on, and you got a little half an hour. You didn't have 24-hour news feed, and now you have social media, and you can throw whatever you want on social media, and people will believe it. I think that some of this has to do with that as well. It's just that they get a little bit nationwide or even world famous.
Yeah, social media is a problem and needs to be put in check. It needs to be regulated as journalism is. Because there's so much false information that is put out on social media. And people believe it. Why? Because they look at the person doing all the research instead of you doing the research.
Another part of this that we don't talk about, and Jen, I'm not sure if you guys had it there. We used to have, I guess it's the equivalent of like a cultural center in the neighborhood, like after school programs, and the after school programs would be like some old black dude telling you how it was back in the day, telling you the history of the neighborhood and how, the neighborhood that I lived in, it was always a black neighborhood. Ever since before the Civil War, it was a black neighborhood. Free blacks lived there. And then after the Civil War, they started letting, everybody else in, and then the neighborhood went down and the free blacks moved out the neighborhood. But how, you always had some old head to tell you your history. And now the young people, there's nobody telling them the history. There's nobody actually explaining to them, hey, this is something you need to be proud of. Every time you hear about the past, it's from a point of victimhood. It's from a point of, oh, this person did this to you. This person did this to you. They talk about the Greenwood neighborhood. I hate calling it Black Wall Street. The Greenwood neighborhood of Tulsa, Oklahoma. They talk about how it was burned down in 21, but nobody tells you how it was rebuilt by 25. and how it was banks, black insurance companies, and black banks in Atlanta that loaned them the money that they paid back, that they used to rebuild those neighborhoods. They don't tell you about resilience. They only tell you the stories of negativity and you being put down and who did this to you and who's to blame for it. That's a common playbook all throughout history, used by people to keep poor people down. And if people know, hey, we were able to build our own hotels, restaurants, hotel chains in segregation, what's your excuse now? Nobody wants that to be put on them. How do we start these black banks in segregation, but you can't get a high school diploma today? So I think a lot of that is stuff that when we talk about the culture and who's to blame and the crime, I think that's a big part of it. And yes, I am doing something because I do have an after Genos. I have my business bankrolls an after school program and a summer camp.
Oh, there was a Jabari. There was something you brought up earlier, Jabari. Right. So when you brought up about missing children and everything, right? I happen to work with one of the organizations that does this stuff. Okay. The 4 major organizations that do go look for missing children, not only in the United States, but overseas, are all retired military guys. So we're out here doing that.
Yeah, it's just, people keep saying,
but we couldn't get, we didn't get help with the previous administration. We've gotten help with this administration on getting things done. Obama administration, we got no help on that.
So Mr. Research has just entered the room. What say you, Mr. Research? Here we go.
Hey, how you doing? So you guys were saying a couple of different topics, so I don't know what the core premise is. I was trying to sit back and listen to what the core premise was because there was a couple of different topics being shot around.
Which one would you like to address? Which one stuck out to you the most that you have a rebut for or something?
No, let me start with an agreement. So what happens is, as one thing we're saying about history, the gentleman mentioned about a lot of people had historical references or were well read where they can compete in a conversation. The unfortunate thing is now the people who are not well read have the loudest voices. I come from a Huey Newton background, so I've been exposed to a lot of history. I have cross-referenced quite a few things that I know to be true. I don't take just one line of someone's narrative. I cross-reference that. I see what the Persians say about it. I see what the Sudan say about it. Lake Nasser. I see what the Numidians say about it. And and when it comes to America, it's the same thing. Going all the way back to 1500 BC. It's unfortunate. The loudest people on the microphone are just like church pastors at this point. And my also agreement is about neighborhoods, our neighborhoods and what have you. You have a lot of individuals who they don't want to do the education piece because we got to remember education was frowned upon back in 1950, 1960. So we only really start being happy that people were educated. And I'm talking nationwide, not just certain little regions in Montana or certain little regions in Florida. I mean, nationwide, it was frowned upon if you were well read or knew what a darn almanac was. People was getting hanged and killed back in 1960 for a lot of stuff.
I think that we got to be careful. My paternal, my biological dad's mom, she graduated from college in 1937. She got a master's in 1941 and joined the Army Air Corps. We were doing it then, and she's from the deep South. She's from South Georgia. We were doing it then. It always becomes a question of you don't have it. People feel bad when they don't have it, when they can't make an excuse for their failure. Everybody's looking for an excuse for their failure. And the fact is, the biggest reason for failure is the person that you see in the mirror. You know, there was a guy, Oscar Michael. Tyler Perry referenced him in his Lifetime appreciation. This guy started a movie theater in the 1920s. He had his own movie house in the 1920s. He released movies that were shown in black theaters. This guy was completely erased from history. Just whether intentional or unintentional, the guy was erased from history. This guy was the premier producer of black films in the 1920s. Just no history of him as a movie maker. When you can't tell your story, what is the expression, Jen? The hunter will always tell a tale until the lion gets to speak, or something along those lines. If you allow other people to tell you, to teach your kids the history they want them to know, they will always be able to control your kids. And that's an aspect of the problem that we won't address. But in the meantime, I say put them boots on the ground. To go back to just original question, put them boots on the ground, take the neighborhoods back, because that facilitates the ability to do those other things. It becomes safe enough to do after school programs. It becomes safe enough to, because you have to have a degree of buy-in from, that's another thing we used to have. The criminals in the neighborhood, the old heads, you couldn't do certain things in certain neighborhoods, in certain places. And those neighborhood centers, I know the one in our neighborhood, the cultural center, was off limits. If you got out of line in there if you wanted. So
really quickly, hit that like and subscribe for Mama. Thank you so much, Ruth. If you want to buy me a smoothie, Cash App on the block with Jen is scrolling at the bottom. This is still a business, okay? Still a business, all right? I ain't up here just because I'm cute, but I am cute. So this statement right here: Black culture accepts degeneracy more than any other culture. It's literally the only culture where the middle class and even the upper class look down towards the lower class with adulation. Would you guys agree, chat and panel? Would you agree? And if you're seeing this after and you're in my comments, would you agree that Black culture of all cultures accepts degeneracy more than any other culture? Yay or nay? I have my opinion, but I will pause for the gentleman.
So I'm a world traveler. I look at degeneracy very differently. I understand we don't like hood, that many people have hood fatigue, and they try to push hood fatigue toward black, as if Yemen people ain't out here doing the exact same thing, because we can tell evidence shows when they get arrested, keyword arrested, that a lot of times it's not the black folks, it's Latin folks doing a lot of degeneracy, because we can tell evidence when they get arrested. Even what the gentleman just said a moment ago, and I kind of preferenced that before he said it, these anecdotal unicorns, these 10% unicorns, we make them as if they're 90%. What happens in New York, Chicago, LA, or Baltimore and Philly is not the rest of black folks. Because most of the time when we talk about degeneracy, it's from one of those 4 or 5 places. We're not talking about the black folks in Montana, the black folks in Alaska, the black folks out here in non-LA portion of Cali. We're not talking about that. Even my area, in the Bay Area, people say, oh, the Bay Area this, the Bay Area that. And then you look at who gets arrested. A lot of times it's not even a black person. I was talking to a city official today, and we were talking about that, how so many people in our area are Yemen and Latin, and they're getting arrested. But you won't see that narrative, because we always talking about these 10% unicorns. We don't want to have a fair, competitive conversation. We want to have, hey, look, it gotta be this. We were doing things, and here's my last point to what he said earlier. We were doing things, as I said, in little regions here in Florida, little regions here. But this is why I try not to use anecdotal. I got 5 certifications. I was told by a Italian HR lady that I was too dark skinned to be in the front. But I'm not going to bring that up. But see, that's to compete against his thing of, hey, this anecdotal person did this. We all got anecdotal negatives to go with his anecdotal positives, but we don't like bringing it up. Black men specifically, when we try to get out beyond the hood, we're met with a lot of pushback, regardless of our skill set, regardless of this or well-spoken we are, of this, that, or third. But your premise is true. I think, and I'm answering that question, I believe that right now, the optics of Black, whether that's Black Africans who are doing it, the Belize Black people in LA, a lot of people don't even know half of those guys are Caribbean. Yes, the optics of Black people is the narrative, but I challenge everybody to go look at who's convicted as opposed to who's just charged.
So let me. I'm gonna push back just a teeny bit, but I really do want the opinion of the other gentleman as well. Before we jump a flight and go to Istanbul and find the black people in the corner, before we jump a flight, we live in America, okay? We live in the cities, we live in the big cities or whatever. And I, for one, when you look at even music, because Therese said black culture, right? Black culture includes music as well. What other culture, and I'm here to learn, right? I'm here to push you, but I'm here to learn. What other culture under the sun has something maybe specifically like a music genre where they're constantly berating the women, promoting pimp culture, promoting gang culture, promoting violence amongst each other? What other culture on planet Earth does that? What other culture promotes things like twerking everywhere you go as part of a language? So twerking is almost like a speaking language at this point, right? What other culture in the world? Before you say, well, they do it too, they do it too, and they do it too. What other culture promotes this, accepts it, celebrates it, champions it, defends it? I think that's what Therese is trying to say. Therese, you could correct me if I'm wrong as well in the chat. But what other culture? Help me out, y'all.
I don't think it's anecdotal either. I think that most black men wake up every day, go to work. I think that was the case. That's the case today. That was even more so the case in 1950, in 1970. You can draw a clear line in 1968-ish, 67-ish, 64, after the passage of the Great Society, when they manufactured the destruction of the black family. But before that point, black men went to work. We had, if you go back to the 1950s, from the 1900s to actually from the 1880s to the 1950s, blacks had the highest percentage in this country of two-parent households, of nuclear families. The wage gap between whites and black went down every year, in every single census from 1880 to 1970. The wage gap shrunk every single census during that period. Since then, it's exploded in the other direction. So it wasn't individuals. What we've been celebrating, and I think it's not just something that we put upon ourselves. If you look at who ran the music industry, the artists that got promoted. Jen, you were from New York. There were conscious people. You had people like KRS-One. You had people telling the stories in the neighborhood. But the people who got pushed and promoted, God love them, the NWAs, the people who were
the West Coast.
Right now, if you look around the country,
no, I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about that time you're talking about. That was the West Coast.
But you have to look at the evolution. I remember the first time a woman was just blatantly disrespected, the Dre Day video. You guys remember that? The girl was walking through the crowd. She didn't touch anybody. She didn't disrespect anybody. All she did was swerve all the guys. You don't know if she was there to see her man. You don't know what she was there for. At the end of the video, they sprayed the beer bottles on her just for swerving them. Blatant disrespect didn't happen like that before. So we have
in the culture. when you say before, because I kind of want to stay in 2025, because what we do is we go way back all the time. Kevin, thank you so much for the Cash App. Thank you. If you guys want to Cash App me, it's on the block with Jen, floating on the bottom. We tend to do that. We tend to either leave the country or we tend to go 50 years. I'm talking about 2025. What celebrated now, when we look at things like what's trending on social media, and it's mostly black influencers talking about it. This isn't other races going after black people. This is black influencers talking about the Carnival cruises, what happens in the restaurants, what happens at the local McDonald's, what happens at the DMV, what happens at the Walmart. These are black influencers talking about other black people. So I'd like to stay away from racism if we can. I'd like to stay away from Istanbul if we can. I'd like to stay away from 1956 if we can. I'm talking about now. Is the comment was black culture accepts degeneracy more than any other culture. Accepts degeneracy more than any other culture. When you look at the rappers or whatever, and I don't want to go into who the labels are promoting, because they couldn't promote unless the black artists were willing to put themselves out there and talk about killing each other and prostitution and things like that. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you guys. Ice Spice and Cardi B are both, part Latin. Most of the women that like Cardi B and Ice Spice are black women, right? It's not Latin women. I don't hang out with Latinas and they're like, hey, throw on that Cardi B and Ice Spice. So I want to stay in 2025. Is there a difference?
Okay.
Is there a difference?
So no. Let's be fair to your premise. It's a pigeonhole premise, but let's be fair to it. When you mention twerk, no other person does that except black. So it's always the answer to your question is always going to be yes, because it's a pigeonhole question. Let's be even more fair to your point. Black is not doing culturally what the Boule blacks are doing. We're a broken culture. We're similar to the gypsies. Nobody likes to admit that. Nobody likes to admit that people were being harmed for trying to be everything that we say we hate about 2025. We don't want to have that discussion. We only want to have the discussion of these blacks are terrible right now. Great, no problem. Not going to really argue about it. Let's move the conversation forward and talk about how evil people are conducting themselves. Because we don't want to mention some of the policies that forced it to get that way. We don't want to mention that. We want to put blinders on that and just talk about, hey, by now they should just self-correct themselves. Well, the gypsies and the Kurds don't separate themselves. But again, let's stay in America. Yes, the answer is always going to be yes when you frame the question like that, how terrible these blacks are. Now, rock and roll has pedophilia in it. I Love Rock and Roll is talking about molesting a 17-year-old boy. Put another record on a jukebox, baby.
Let me pause you.
Okay, I can't make the point.
No. I know, but you're diverting. I like, again, you went to the Boulets and can we stay in this? I don't understand. Can we stay?
Okay. Yes, we are terrible.
I want to what Therese said. And it sounds to me like you're speaking from a place where other races and cultures and ethnicities are attacking the blacks. You keep saying with the S at the end.
No, I think you misunderstand it.
Wait, the statement here says, okay, the second part of the statement says, even the middle class and the upper class look down towards the lower class with adulation. There is a separation. Why is it so hard? Why? It's like you're a monolith or you're not a monolith. There is a separation where the upper class and the middle class are looking down at the girls who twerk on cars in Miami like, what the fuck are you doing? These are black people noticing that black people are not doing what they should be doing. Can we just stay like, I don't know why we have to go.
I think you're looking for people to just blindly agree. But I'll pass it out.
No. I don't want you to agree. This isn't even a like agree or disagree with me. This is does black culture accept degeneracy more than any other culture? What Therese said. That's what I'm looking for. It's yes or no. Do they accept degeneracy? Do black people accept degeneracy more than any other culture of their degenerates? I've said here before, I am Puerto Rican. I grew up in the Bronx, in the Boogie Down, the worst of the worst, the South Bronx, Prospect Avenue. Okay, it wasn't a rich neighborhood. My father worked 3 jobs. He was very adamant about what Puerto Ricans we couldn't hang with. The separation of our family and the degenerate Puerto Ricans on the corner was a stark difference. My father made it abundantly clear. There was no leeway. There was no, but we all Puerto Rican and we all waved the same flag, Jen. My father was like, yes, no, yes, no. That is what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. Can you separate it without saying, well, you know, those Puerto Ricans over there are bad because white people made a poor borough for us? That is what I'm talking about. If you're getting offended, you're not going to get it. You're going to go to the Boulets in Istanbul in 1955 and they dropped the bomb. And does black culture accept degeneracy more than any other culture? That's what Therese said. That's what I'm looking for. So I don't want you to agree with me. I want you to address that. It's yes or no.
I think the issue is whenever someone other than black people have this conversation, we instinctively try to defend black people, which kind of proves the point. There is a subset of the culture that, and you can say that in any culture, is bad. The difference is, I don't know any other group that has a George Floyd Boulevard all over. I don't, you can't celebrate, and I said this earlier, you celebrate the worst of you, not the best of you. There's no, our music celebrate, like the drill music is the most popular music, one of the most popular music genres in the black community now. I don't know if you guys have heard any of that stuff. It's on another level. You think gangster rap was bad in the 90s and the late 80s? You haven't heard anything. Like, these boys are laying out actual crimes. There is a problem with the culture. And whenever the culture, and whenever the worst of us are challenged, all of us run to their defense. And I think that's what Therese was talking about. That instinctive desire for black people to protect other black people, even black people that are dead freaking wrong, even black people that terrorize other black people. And that's the issue. And until we can get, and we don't, and in our own circles, and here's the nuance to this, in our circles, we admit it. In our circles, we admit it. And I think it goes back to having conversations outside of our circles when people instinctively want to defend your own because you feel like it's an attack on you, or it's an attack on your knucklehead cousin, or it's an attack on the way you were when you were 17, 18 years old, when the fact is they not like us, to use the little crappy song, because they're not, they're different. And the fact that we defend them is a problem. Sometimes you just got to call wrong and let them deal with it, and let them suffer the results. As long as you protect the bad. What is the expression? Only thing that allows evil to succeed is the apathy and the inaction of good men. That's what we're seeing, and now it's taking over the culture. And even worse is how other people see us. It's how everybody else sees us. The concept of ghetto fatigue is synonymous with what people are saying black fatigue. And that should trouble people. They think that ghetto is black. That's the issue. That's what we have to do.
Mr. Research, he made an interesting point in the back chat. He says this is because your dad had an intact culture. Black culture is a broken culture. What is it? So yes, any broken culture does. So he's saying that Puerto Ricans had an intact culture.
The Black American culture is a unique culture. It's a young culture, but it's a unique culture. Black American culture, and anyone who's traveled knows, Black Americans are different than other blacks in the diaspora. We are very different. We carry ourselves different. We walk in rooms. When I was in the Air Force, we would go out in Germany, and people would say, you could tell they're Americans. We walk different. We talk different. We have, people call it swag. you can call it cockiness. We carry ourselves different, and we have different experiences. There was something about being molded by slavery and Jim Crow and all of that. The Black American experience is a culture. So it's, to me, that's a part of that, the mindset of we've been victimized. The fact is we built a culture despite that. Despite all of that, we built our own culture. And I think that's something to be proud of, not something to look down on. And I think that when we allow the worst elements of our race or our people, and when I say people, I'm talking about Black people, not Africans, not Somalis, not Black Americans. We allow a subset of our community, the worst subset, to define all of us. I think that's a problem. That's something that no external conversation can fix. That's something that has to be fixed within the Black community.
So this is an interesting statement. Black American culture is non-existent in the specific definition of culture. We lack a collective sense of identity. But I want to say to that, why is this, explain to me, why is this pining a need for a collective identity? What race and ethnicity has a collective identity? There's different types of Latins, white people. No saying is different from the guys that live in the trailer parks. Asians, they're the rich Asians that pay violins and pianos, and they're doctors, and then they're the Asians in Chinatown in New York City, and it's dirty and it stinks down there. Like, why do Black people have this need for this collective? I think that's where the confusion happens, where it's like you look at somebody like Meg Thee Stallion and another girl that looks just like her who could be a college grad, summa cum laude, and it's like, no, those are collective. Like that Meg Thee Stallion and that Megan, the graduated summa cum laude, they must be one because they're all Black. And I think that's where the mistake happens. Like, why isn't there a separation? That's what's confusing to me.
But I'll say this. Every group does that. The Italians get defensive when you talk about the mafia. The Russians get defensive when you talk about the thieves network. It happens. However, they don't celebrate that subset of the culture. They don't defend it with the passion that we do. I think somebody posted in the chat the whole no snitch concept. That's one of those things. You look at our music, our entertainment, it's celebrated as our culture. And we do have a unique experience. Black American culture is, the specific definition is a shared experience. By the way, the shared experience is a history of slavery, Jim Crow, and the period since. That is a shared history. The fact that history is only 200 years old does not make it any different than, say, the Kurds, who've never had their own country. So we got to get rid of that mindset that we don't have our own culture. We do have a unique culture that is a subculture of the United States. And it is something to be proud of instead of something to highlight only the worst elements of. It's a history of overcoming.
So let me say this. It's hard to have this part of discussion because it's an unwillingness to learn. And it's more like, I only want to hear this. And when a discussion is like, I only want to hear this, and there's an unwilling to learn the difference, our people are a blend of folks based on appearance. Seminoles, Blackfoot, Choctaw, Moroccans from 1500, anybody that visited America and got kidnapped in New York. That's a real historical thing, and got dragged down to the South. So an unwillingness to hear that kind of, it's not one of learning. It's just, hey, just look at this part of the discussion. Okay, when we do that, I'm over here by Stanford and UC Berkeley. We can't do that in any discussion. Just say, hey, let's just look at this one piece of a discussion. No, you got to look at the whole discussion. Now, I'm going to agree once again, our culture that many outsiders don't like they have a right to wag their finger. Nah, 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 nah. And I think that's the point that people want to do. Not on the stage necessarily, but just in these discussions. They don't want to see it from a comparable us versus the gypsies and how they're very similar. They don't want to see it how the gypsies were put over in that land to work and much of their culture is displaced. They don't want to have that conversation. They just want to say, look at,
okay, but I want to.
you keep interrupting me every time, but you let him speak.
Yeah, because we have to keep.
When you let him speak,
I know, but
but
I don't
not
want
me.
people. No, listen,
Okay, you got it.
I don't want people falling asleep here, and you keep going back to the gypsies. You're being redundant, and I'm letting everybody speak, but you're being redundant. I like to stay as present as possible, and this is gonna sound funny, okay? But I'm not trying to be funny. Carnival Cruise just set out a list of rules. Did they do that because of the gypsies? Did they do that because what happened to the gypsies? Carnival Cruise just dropped the rule. They don't want certain people doing certain things. Was that because of the gypsies? Was that because of Jim Crow? Was that because of slavery? Go ahead, Mr. Research. I'll give you the mic. Okay, he's gone. Anybody else want to answer that? Why are things getting banned on something as simple as Carnival Cruise? And I'm not trying to be funny. It sounds funny. But why is that happening in 2025?
We know why.
Yeah, this is why I call it propaganda. Yes, you're right. Black people are evil. That seems like that's all you want to hear.
That's not.
I agree with you. Black people are wrong. So I pass the mic.
He passes the mic. Black people are evil. That was his contribution. Anybody else?
Okay, let me start by saying human beings are evil in general. It's more a rarity to find a good person than a bad one. That said, I think that we can't oversimplify this one way or the other. I think that these conversations aren't necessarily productive outside of the community because it's a community issue that has to be dealt with by the community. And I mean, I don't know that that's I'm sorry, I don't know the brother's name. Research. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, bro. These types of conversations, it's when a problem has to be solved internally, external forces, external conversations about the problem aren't always productive, if that makes any sense. The issue is it's hard to come from a position internally when you have stressors from the outside. I want to make one comment, and I promise I'm not going to go off on a tangent. Gypsies have a very, very strong culture. I don't know if you know a lot of them. I've been to Germany. They have a large population. They're hated. They're hated on a level that Black people in this country is hard to fathom. They're hated everywhere in Europe. They're hated in parts of Asia. But their culture is intact, 100% intact. They are nomadic people in a time when people aren't nomadic. So let me go ahead and throw that out there before we compare cultures. And they're also known as criminals everywhere they go, either fairly or unfairly. So comparing us to gypsies isn't a good comparison from my perspective. It's not a good perspective because the whole idea of Black people being lazy and criminals and all of that are only 100 years old. First 200 years in this country, we're considered the most loyal people you can encounter. And I can post the newspaper articles to prove it. And I don't want to put this off on a team.
No, that's fine. So what happens, again, what's perplexing to me is, and I hear what you said, Jabari, it's like these conversations, whether they're productive, whether they're not productive, whatever, we're having them, right? But my default is always, what's so hard about separation? Like I don't understand why that's so difficult for the Black community and Black culture. Why isn't it like, Mr. Research, the default is victimhood. All right, we're all evil people. That's what you wanted to hear. The default is like victimhood, like, oh, they're after us again. Versus just having a conversation where it's like, what's so wrong with separation? What's so wrong with separation? Can you relate to a YN in New York? Jabari, are you gonna hang with a YN in New York because you both have Jim Crow in common?
Absolutely.
No, Saint. Are
No,
you gonna hang? Are you gonna hang with a meth trailer park person because you're white and they're white and it's a collective culture? Who would do that? That's where I'm. That's what confuses
yeah,
me.
but the problem is you're not being fair to the conversation. You're manipulating it and trying to structure it to.
I want to say something. So, and we're talking when you brought up the Carnival cruise thing. It's always going to be the people acting in a proper way is never going to go viral. So it's always going to be the worst of the worst you're going to see that gets the attention. And so I believe Carnival Cruise did that because they were getting a lot of bad press. There's videos all over calling the ghetto of the sea and a bunch of things. I told you I went on one last in July, and it was great. There was no problems. And I think, and I think that's probably how a lot of them go, but it's only going to take a few people. And a lot of the times it could be anybody. A lot of times it's also, I had heard someone said, I don't know how true this is, but like the 3-day cruises are the ones where people have a lot of fights and things because they're really cheap to get on. So then you can go on to like an economic thing, right? You can say maybe it's an economic thing. The one I went on was a 7-day. And like I said, everybody there were black people, white people, and nobody acted a fool, so it's always going to be the worst that you're going to see. I'm saying this because, listen, I'm trying to stay out of this because as far as like, I'm listening. I'm trying to listen and learn, right? Just like I forgot the guy's name that was in the military for 20 years. I learned some stuff from it. I didn't, he came in saying I was dead wrong, and I can admit it. I didn't know as much as him about what was going on. So, but that's what I'm here to do too. I always like learning, so I don't like really interjecting on things like this when I really, I feel like I'm.
That's fine. You can have your opinion. You need to listen to more white radicals on YouTube. No saying, get in there, white man. I wanted to say, Fahim Jackson, increase the ticket prices. Yeah, that is the answer, because No Saint mentioned he went on a longer cruise, right? And there was no incident. However, on the cheaper 2-3 day cruises, there is a lot of incidents, right? And we could say, well, this didn't happen over here, but if you look on YouTube or TikTok, there are hundreds of videos, so it's happening. It's happening.
Another thing, we talk about. Somebody mentioned, black people twerk, white people twerk. I live in South Georgia. Country white people twerk too. Like, that's just become a thing. The negative. The association, that's the problem, and the association exists because of the defense of the indefensible, and that's the problem. That's why I think it was JD Vance wrote a book, Trailer Park Elegy, and it became a movie, and he talks about how the white trash culture, which is what he grew up in, and how bad the white trash culture is where he's from. But the rich white folks look down on him. The middle class white folks look down on him. They never defended him. They never made that. They never associated with that. And I think a lot of that is, I think a part of it is whites don't see themselves as just white, especially in the terms of, you have German Americans, you have Irish Americans, and even if you've been here for so many generations, you still associate. And the Irish have negative connotations about them. The Italians have negative connotations, but all of the blacks kind of get lumped together because we allow ourselves to still be lumped together. And I think that goes to the point that you're making about the need for separation, where we're not like them for whatever reason, and different isn't necessarily better, but at the same time, it's not necessarily worse. It's not, so I do feel like the reason why I say it's not productive, even though we are having a conversation, is because some people, no matter what, are not going to engage in an honest conversation attacking Black people to non-Black people. And I think that's natural. And I think you'll find that in every community. But it just so happens that our negativities are highlighted. Criminal culture, the I hate using the term hood because I grew up in the hood and that was not allowed. So the only word, I mean, Therese said it best, it's the degenerate culture. Degeneracy is allowed, and it's something that's existing in society as a whole now. We are accepting more as a society than we've ever accepted in terms of degenerate behavior. But in our community, it is worse, and we do accept worse for whatever reason. And I don't think it's anti-Black to say that. I think it's just a matter of fact. It's just a matter of look around and see what you see. Sometimes what you see is what it is.
So Therese says, Jen, off topic. No, it's kind of still on topic. But in your opinion, do Latinos as a collective feel a sense of oneness? I've seen recently Caribbean Latinos saying they can't relate to Mexicans or South Americans. Well, we feel a oneness when we're at the Bad Bunny concert. aside from that, there's a lot of infighting amongst Latins, a lot. I follow a lot of Puerto Rican influencers pages, and people go for comments talking about the Puerto Ricans from New York aren't really Puerto Ricans, the Puerto Ricans from Chicago aren't really Puerto Ricans, the only Puerto Ricans that count are on the island. So there's a lot of infighting. There's people that love Bad Bunny and hate Bad Bunny. Like, there's a lot of infighting, but for some reason that man, and I bring him up because he manages to bring all the Latins, all the Spanish speaking people from around the world together. He kind of forces them to be together. Is there a oneness? Yeah, at the parades and shit, just like the West Indian parades, but there's still a lot of infighting. Jabari mentioned Italians. I follow Growing Up Italian on Instagram, a lot of Italian pages. Let me tell you something. The Italians, the Italianos, they don't like the guys that say, hey, Tony, where's the fucking spaghetti? They criticize those people. There's infighting, amongst Italians too. You know what I mean? But back to the point, there's always a separation. Like, I literally heard the other day this Italian guy saying, where did that come from? And he's Italian. And he was saying, where did that come from? What are you doing? Get the pizza. He was like, we don't talk like that. When did that become popular? And this is an Italian guy talking about an Italian guy. But there's a separation. Again, he's not celebrating. This guy's not celebrating. The other guy, where's the pizza? What are you talking about, Tony? He's not celebrating him. He's like, why are you speaking that way? And that was my point earlier before Mr. Research got in all his feelings.
I mean, I want to say it's not too hard to figure out why. So the Italians that moved to New York and to New Orleans, because we had an Italian population down here as well, they form a separate culture. You're no longer the pure Italian culture. And not only that, you're speaking English. I don't know if the Italian guy that's on there saying where'd they get this from is he may be speaking English, but you speak it and you develop the way they, just like that's where a lot of accents come from. We have several different accents, and it depends on what region you're on in the city, because some were the Irish, some were the Italians, some were the French. So they all have a little bit different way they speak, because through time you learn English and you have an accent and then you speak a certain way. So I get what you're saying, but as far as that goes, yeah, they're certainly they're not Italian anymore when it comes down to it. They're Italian American.
That's with a lot of cultures, right? So you got the Italians from Italy don't like Italians when they say gabagool. They really don't like it. You got, those in Puerto Rico on the island talking all that trash of those of us here on the mainland. But not understanding that we are generations here on the mainland. And, there's reasons why Operation Bootstrap and all that other nonsense. But, like I don't know if Jenna, sees my thing on these Instagram things. And I tell him, say, hey, when the next hurricane hits, don't freaking come calling to us over here. If you calling us not being Puerto Ricans, don't call us.
No, I actually got into it with some Puerto Ricans about that because they were playing that, oh, y'all not from the island, blah, blah.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, well, all that charity work I did, all that, when I do it again, don't take one bottle of water from that box because I'm sending it from New York. Biatch.
Yeah. But it's a mindset of ignorance. That's what it really boils down to, is ignorance. And we all have it. Doesn't matter what culture you have, you're going to have part of the culture that is ignorant.
So to switch things up a little bit, and I don't know if we're gonna go for any longer because I did have some other topics I want to talk about really quick. But Kevin Pryor says, can we get some solutions? How do we get better? My response is, there is no solution. Separation is key. People are going to do and be who they are, especially in the hood where I was born and raised, especially in the hood. Someone who's going to decide to live and speak and talk and be a certain way, that is how they're going to be. Nothing's going to change that. Just like in every other culture and every other ethnicity, they're not going to change unless they want to. That's how I feel. So separation is key. You can't save everybody. Everybody can't come. But that's my opinion. Maybe Jabari, No Saint, Big Dog, maybe you guys have
it's like, when I retired out of the military, I moved down. I went back to New York, lived there for a few years, and I said, I'm out of here. Okay, because I saw what New York was turning to. Okay. And I moved down south. Now they say, hey, why don't you move, to Orlando? There's a lot of Puerto Ricans over there. I said, you want me to be in jail because I'll be killing them? Those are the ignorant ones. Those are the ones I want to put a bullet in real quick. Because they brought that trash from up north back, to wherever they go, hence Rochester, New York. Okay, you had a lot of Puerto Ricans from the city move up to Rochester. Rochester crime starts skyrocketing. Orlando's crime, it starts skyrocketing. I don't want to live on the East Coast of Florida. Okay, I love my people, but y'all piss me the hell off. My days of knuckle dragging is over with.
That's what my daddy said. Jabari Bryant, what do you think? Island Puerto Rican. I'm sorry. What do you think? Are there any solutions? Yeah, Adam Hearn, that is true.
Consequences. I mean, the first thing to change behavior is consequences for bad behavior. It's like anything else. Humans are not spurred. And for those who believe in God or right or wrong, or it's not the love of good that keeps human beings from being barbarians. It's the fear of consequence. It's the fear of what keeps men in line with other men. Even if a man thinks he could kick another man's behind, the fact that that man might swing back on you and get that one lucky punch. Men are respectful. Men carry themselves different because of consequences. We don't kill people, even though we all want to every day when we drive, because you don't go to jail for it. There's a consequence. And we shield that segment of the community from consequence. We shield them from the social stigma. We shield them from the community in general, the society in general, ostracizing them. They have to experience the consequence, because as somebody who worked with them for years and now who sees them, all the time, they get embarrassed just like everybody else. If you ever notice, those bad behavior events always happen in large groups, because when you're by yourself and you act ignorant and you're shunned, you're ashamed. Once that veil of protection is lifted, you feel the shame of your actions, and we protect them from that shame that they should feel. And that's not just with the Carnival cruises. that's across the board with a lot of things, from education to culture. So consequences is my answer. Harsh ones.
No Saint, resident white guy. What do you think? Can everybody give No Saint a pass? He's been with us for years. He watches a lot of YouTube. You know what I mean? He lets us drive him crazy. That's my ace right there. Okay. No Saint is like DL Hughley and Vlad. That's me and No Saint. Me and No Saint. No Saint. What do you think? Just on the outside looking in, you ain't got to be black, you ain't got to be Puerto Rican, but I'm sure you've looked at a bunch of us and been, acting the monkey ass fools over here, and you were like, I bet if they did X, Y, and Z, they would get better. Have you ever thought that? And what was it? What was the solution?
I mean, I've when it comes to that behavior that we're talking about, the degenerate behavior, I've seen it in other places too, so I don't necessarily put it, but I avoid it. Right. I think, and when it comes to, I'll just try to bring it to where I'm from, like people on the panel were saying, I look down, like I think Jabari was saying. I certainly look down. I showed Jen one time. I had my camera. I was talking to Jen. I was at a Walmart, and there was a, for lack of a better word, poor white trash girl behind me with a bonnet on. I was like, Jen, check this out. And yeah, you do, but I agree. Like you got to separate. And the problem, I think, when it comes to the Black communities, we put them into one category. So, and I wouldn't blame Jabari or Big Dog at all if they separated and didn't want to be associated with the degenerate part, right? Because I don't want to be a part of white trash or meth heads or racists, right? I want to separate myself from those people. I do believe that that's the only way, but I think that in my opinion, that Black people have a little harder time separating because they're put into a certain category.
See? Nobody got hurt. There are no crosses burning on the lawn. Everybody's unscathed. Thank you, No Saint, for that very in-depth opinion. But Jabari is funny because he brought up white girls twerk too. Ain't nobody worried about no damn white girls twerking. You know where they got the damn twerking from. Just like No Saint said, he saw some white trash in the Walmart with a bonnet. Where she got the idea of a bonnet? Like, come on now. Let's cut it out. Don says to No Saint, what do you call this? You can tell us. Come on, No Saint, come on.
I mean, to be real, but the twerking didn't even start here.
No, it's African culture. Yeah, no.
Yes, and it's mainly in Brazil. And during Carnival, you would see that in Brooklyn.
It's just done at the strangest places now, like tablecloth restaurants and shit.
Yeah, I know it's stupid shit.
The lack of consequence, the lack of public shaming. We don't. Like I said, that's a pure societal issue. We don't shame people for ignorance anymore of any kind. We don't call insanity.
Well, society changed though, right? Because
I think
coming up, if you looked at your mother sideways, you were getting smacked in public. And the other parents were like, yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's a big difference back then.
I think parts of the country, I think a lot of the stuff, and I'm in Savannah right now. I bounce between Savannah, Atlanta, and Charlotte. What you see outside of the cities, what you see outside of the larger cities to the medium cities really does vary. And you've been from the north to the south, Big Dog, so there's a big difference. And a lot of these values still exist. And that's what I was saying.
Oh, yeah. The values it exists family to family, right? But it all depends on the family.
True. But some families still hold to that. And I think that it's easy. I think it's easy to say that we're all victims, or we're all, and that's the easiest one. That's the default. We're all victims.
You know, it's like like I'll tell you right now, like being a single father of a daughter, yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, kids nowadays, they have this thing of, oh, you know, they want to talk loud back to their mother or father. Yeah, my 10-year-old did that. And guess what? She got hemmed up against the wall real quick.
Did it once.
That's it, right? And she's like, I'm scared of dad. Yeah, I'm not your friend. Your mother wants to be your friend? Okay, fine. I'm not your friend. I'm your father. I will beat you.
Consequences.
Why are
In
we
the
beating the
end.
babies? Why are we beating the babies?
Because sometimes the babies need the beating.
Stand around.
Kevin Pryor, yes, ignorance has become profitable. This is why I say the solution is separation, because now that people are making lots and not a little bit of money, people are making lots of money off of ignorance. It's just going to continue. So I don't see it going backwards. I see it going.
Chris Rock said this on one of his specials. I love black people. I hate. You know, he said it.
A lot of black people say that.
You know, and it's the same thing within other cultures too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all have that. Like, you know, it's heavily in the Puerto Rican culture. Okay, we just don't. We like to keep a lot of things in house. Okay, compared to a lot of other cultures. You know, Asians, they definitely keep everything in house. Italians is like a 50-50. Polish and Irish is a 50-50. You know, but the one thing with the Puerto Rican side is like the moms was like, my kid can never do anything wrong. But once dad came through the door, you would find the books to pad yourself. Because dad wasn't playing those games. You know, I was more scared of my father than I was my mother. My mother was the one that gave most of the ass whippings to me and my brothers. You know, as soon as she said, I'm telling your father, no, you can't tell. You know, it was the fear concept in that. And he would just come in and just look at you and you were ready, you know, you were shaking.
Yeah,
You know, we don't have things like that no more.
Yeah, there's a lot of lack of a lot of things, you know. But I just want to say, I said it. I've been saying this for years, actually, on this platform for years. Separation is key. There's a gentleman by the name of King Randall who I follow on Instagram. Amazing young brother. He's one of the people that didn't wait for no government. He didn't wait for no elders. He didn't wait for no donations. He didn't wait for no GoFundMe.
He's not a Umar. Let's just say he's not a Umar.
And he started very small, teaching children in the neighborhood, little black boys, how to fix cars. He got all the way up to the point where now he has an actual school. He's doing amazing work, and he started by himself. So recently, he posted a video where he had little black boys at a dinner table, and they were suited, and they were teaching them etiquette, right? How to eat, and with certain forks and knives or whatever. And there were people in the comments, black people, who were saying, why are you teaching these kids white standards and how to eat like white people, talk like white people? So this is why I say separation is key for the survival, I think, of black culture, because black culture is a beautiful culture, right? And some people say there is no culture. There is a culture. Well, I don't know. I see culture, right? But I see two separate cultures. I see two very separate cultures. I see the King Randalls, and then there's the Dr. Umar Johnsons, okay? Two very separate cultures.
One opened up a school.
And one said he was gonna, right? So for years and years and years and years. So I think separation is key. And then I follow Kevin Kelly, who's opened up countless restaurants, a black restaurateur. He has nightclubs and everything. He was one that, some women were twerking in his restaurant, and he kicked them out. He came out and said, look, I want people to have a good time here. I don't want people to be sitting, having dinner and you three are twerking over there. And black people wanted to boycott him, right? And he's a black restaurateur, right? He's creating beautiful environments for people to go have dinner and sit down, and there's tablecloths on it. And they wanted to shut him down because they say he was discriminating against the twerkers. So again, separation is key. And I'll leave it at that. Separation is key. No Saint, when's the last time you gave Umar some money?
I knew he was a scam.
It's like this. If Q Butter did it within 2 years, and he started with school trailers. Okay. Now the government, even though it's on hold, pretty much took what you so-called have. And you want to lie about, oh, your bank account's got somebody was committing fraud. No, the IRS hit your bank accounts and froze them. Let's get real about it. Like you're scamming, you're scamming. These are what grifters do. And like I said on a other podcast that I do get on, I was like, the internet has been really made now for goofies. Because that's where it falls down to.
You're right. All you got to do is go. I told this joke. I was half joking earlier today. I said, whenever I feel like I'm just like I'm dumb, like I'm losing brain cells working with some of the guys I work with, I'll just log on to Threads and read like 10, 15 comments, and I'll see how ignorant everybody else is, feel more intelligent, and log back off. It'll give me my nice little dopamine hit so I can go back to and go read a book, because the internet highlights the worst among us, especially social media. Let me not say the internet, because the internet is every book ever written in the palm of your hand.
It's supposed to be a tool to be used.
Yeah, it's every book.
Not for stupidity.
Library. I just went to the library, which is weird, but this has been so long. I had a library card as a kid, and everything is digital in the library. Like there's no card catalog anymore.
Yeah, no index cards and all that.
Yeah, I'm looking for the index cards, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't do that anymore, sir. Not sure how old you are, but we don't do that anymore." But you have every book ever written in your hand. So it's you choose to be ignorant. That's why there's no anybody can make. We have people log on here. You have people go online. They talk about poverty. They talk about systemic racism, which I think is bullshit. They talk about all of these different things, but in the end, you have every book ever written. You can go and listen to meditations by Marcus Aurelius. You can go and read the writings of the last dynasty of the Egyptians. You can, study Imhotep's architecture. You can do all of these things, but you choose to listen to drill music.
Yeah, I can't stand that.
So, I mean, you can make any excuse you want, but but the facts are the facts, and the facts don't care about feelings.
Yeah. There was something you brought up too earlier, right? When you said the School of Americas. It's no longer named the School of Americas. It's the Northern Hemisphere. I forgot the rest of it because it's a long ass name now. It's at Fort Benning, Georgia. I did teach at that school for 2 years.
Good old Fort Benning.
All right, guys. So really quickly, let's take care of some business. Cash App on the Block with Jen. For those of you who asked, it is Cash App on the Block with Jen. I'm taking donations. Cash App on the Block with Jen. I'm taking donations, people. I am taking donations, people. That was my best Dr. Umar, okay? Cash App on the Block with Jen. Hit that like and subscribe. If you got this far and something offended you, this is for you. This is for you. That way you feel like it wasn't about you. Okay. Red Pill Sleeper Cell wanted the link, but baby, we almost out of here, so you got about 5 seconds to make it up here. Just for the record, me and Dad, you know what I'm saying? The family was on the panel tonight, but I ain't letting people up here behind avatars. That shit is said tunda. Okay, I need faces, I need expressions, I need to see you making the stank face like what the fuck she said. I need to see that. I need that. Okay.
You see my face before because we follow each other. You went to the range in a different state. I made a comment about it, and you got pissed off about it.
I went to a range in a
The
different
firing shooting range.
Why you telling people I be shooting though?
You got it all off honesty.
I'm just kidding. Red pill sleeper cell. What's up, darling? What say you? Oh my God! Look who it is. No Saint. No Saint. Look. We were asking about you. What's up?
What's going on? Just got off of work. I saw you up, so what's going on?
You got 777s behind you in your picture?
Yeah, you got the floor.
Oh, you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. I was asking if you had 777s in that picture behind you.
Oh, howitzers. Those are howitzers.
I know they're howitzers. I started off as a fister.
Oh, okay. That was my old unit back in the day.
Yeah.
My unit picture. Well, what's the conversation about? I wanted to show some love, so what's the convo about?
People being stupid.
Oh, well, I mean, that you could blame the internet because the internet is raising these kids nowadays. I mean, total separation. I believe in the separation of class now, the haves and the have-nots. So
that's what we need to do, everybody. That's what we need to do. Yeah. So everybody, people mute. Everybody mute. But yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, separation is key. That whole violin of like, oh no, we're all one, and I don't want to be redundant, but separation is key. I go back to what my daddy said, and I'm sticking to what my daddy said. We don't mess with them over there.
Well, there's a thing now going on is, they want God bodies to come back out again. Yeah. They want us back on the street corners.
Really?
Yep.
So are you going to the street corner?
I'm not, it's the way to father a lot was, education, get a trade, and take care of your seed. But a lot of the seeds out here are lost. So there's a lot of people, especially back in New York, that bodies back out again.
I heard you was earlier talking about Imhotep and all that.
Yeah.
You know me, I always have books stuff, so
yeah. It's interesting. People don't realize that the Egyptian pantheon of gods predates the Greek, but the Sumerians predate the Egyptian. I mean, it's just the depth of the history. Even the Kama Sutra. Not a lot of people talk about the Egyptian water book, which is, older than the Kama Sutra. It's just but again, the entire history of written literature is in the palm of our hands now, and we still manage to blame not being informed on other people. We still blame our lot in life on some mythical system that's that people overcome every day, and that's not the exception. People going to work, people making a better life for themselves is the rule. We see the exceptions, and we defend the exceptions, and the exceptions are the bad behavior. And now that it is being associated with us, now we're trying to push back not against the bad behavior, but against the society as a whole, which is which is the problem, which does nothing but to reinforce the problem. Start it all over again.
Well, I mean, when you talk about Egypt, the map that we see today is not what it is. I mean, if you read like Sheikh Anta Diop's books, pre-colonial Black Africa, the African origin of civilization, myth or reality, and civilization or barbarism. The Nile River flew up, so it came from like you had the Sudan. Everything came from Middle Africa and went up to what you see with is the old Egyptian dynasties and all that. But people don't read no more. I mean, I think one of the biggest mistakes, I mean, it's a gift and a curse where this phone is more powerful than a computer like in the 90s, 80s, and technology is right at the palm of your hand, and we use the technology not for good. I mean, now since everything is digitized, I mean, you could get any book that's especially out of print. People don't get it. They use it for entertainment, and is one of the signs of a fall of society where you give the peasants just enough to sustain themselves and be flooded with entertainment. So it keeps their what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of tames them so they act out. So, and it keeps them distracted just enough to be worker bees for the system. And
Do you watch sports? Do you watch sports?
The last game I seen, because I'm a Yankee fan, and the last Yankee game I saw on TV was when they won their last World Series, where Matsui hit the home run, the triple, the double, and all that. Had 7 RBIs. I work 6 days a week, close to 70 hours a week, so I don't have time. Like, honestly, the football season starts, I work every Sunday, so I just go on the phone, look at ESPN score. That's it. And probably Monday I catch First Take on YouTube and see the highlights. I haven't seen a full game in years of anything. I don't have time.
I need that distraction.
I have here, I got a fucking PS5 and an Xbox that's full of dust. I gotta get my vacuum cleaner and take out the dust out of the vents. Like, I just work. You know, I don't have time for leisure right now.
Sometimes we do not, and that's okay too. All right, guys, we almost at 2 hours and 30 minutes, and I am out of here. Okay, I need to get me some dessert after my dinner. Thank you for this conversation. It went a way that I didn't expect it. I wasn't even. This wasn't supposed. There's a lot of stuff I left on the table that I'll probably talk about. I don't know, maybe even tomorrow. No, saying, can you make it tomorrow? Or are you busy? You busy tomorrow? You busy tomorrow? Get?
Maybe.
Well, if you ain't, we could come up super early for like an hour because I do want to talk about the Epstein thing, the Cardi B trial, the murdered Mexican influencer. She got cartelled in Mexico. Kevin say he'll come through tomorrow. All right, guys. So I am out of here. Good night. Thank you so much for the Cash Apps. Again, if you want Cash App me, it's on the block with Jen. It's floating on the bottom. Same name as the show. Thank you for all your input. The chat was on fire. I love when the chat is on fire. Okay, you make the show better. Good to see you, Red Pill Sleeper Cell. That wasn't your name last time.
Luke Kanye.
Okay, thank you. But we were talking about you. No, Say and I were talking about you the other day. We were like, where is he?
Well, you gave me. I got the wrench in your room. I was moderating. It was last week. You had a bunch of trolls in your chat. I was banning them, removing them. So, I mean, I'll be in the clouds every now and then. So, Anybody act up in the chat side, just kick them right out. So.
And we appreciate you mucho, mucho. All right, guys. Chat and panel, love you all. Good night. Follow Jen Garcia on Instagram. Don't forget, No Saint and I are doing man on the street interviews in the Las Vegas Strip. Next week, he's going to be out here. So we'll be outside with the mics asking people in Vegas crazy questions. You don't want to miss that. First week of October, I will be interviewing my attorney, who's also an attorney on Diddy's defense team. So after his sentencing, I will be interviewing my attorney, and he's going to give us all the juice, hopefully, of what happened during the trial and what he saw behind the scenes. All right, guys. So I am out of here. Yes, I do got a shooter. Okay, I got shooters. All right, guys. Thank you so much again from the bottom of my heart, and I'll see y'all soon. Leave me a comment, a like, and a subscribe. Bye. Good night. And we're out. Don't I look cute?